spent the last 2 days making all of these brownies to find the perfect one. This took 1.5 pounds of chocolate chips, a pound of cocoa powder, 5 pounds of chocolate, $30 worth of vanilla extract, 9 batches of brownies for a total of 144 brownies. I want to show you how I developed my perfect brownie recipe. My perfect brownie, it's 3 things. I've been giving this a lot of thought, probably too much thought. A crackly, smooth, kind of glossy top, a texture that is fudgy, but by fudgy, I think we mean chewy, really deep, really rich flavor. So game plan. V1, we're going for more savory. I think you just have to start somewhere. Informed by some of the recipes that I've seen and that I've cooked myself and that I know work. Mark Bittman's brownies for the New York Times. Ultimate chewy brownies, King Arthur flour. Katharine Hepburn's brownies. This is on Epicurious via Ruth Reichel in Gourmet. It's a tangled web. Just want to get my dry ingredients set. So I'm using a 1/2 cup of flour, a teaspoon of salt, Dutch processed cocoa powder. It has deeper, richer chocolate flavor. 1 stick of butter, browned. If there's an opportunity to introduce a little bit extra flavor, brown sugar instead of white sugar, a little bit of whole wheat flour in addition to AP or just white flour, I go for it. Browning butter drives out the water content from the butter. And when you toast those milk solids, you develop all those wonderful nutty flavors and aromas. It's gonna be actively savory. The question is, are people gonna be willing to do it? I wanna use both cocoa powder and melted chocolate. Bar chocolate is adding fat here. It's also adding body to these brownies. The question is, how do you get that mixture to form like just ever so slight of a crumb? Using too much melted chocolate, you're gonna have like an outrageously chocolate brownie, but like at what point is it almost not even a brownie anymore? Okay, so that's 100 grams of granulated sugar. Do we do the light brown or do we really go for it with the dark brown? Dark brown sugar would just have like a higher proportion of molasses content here, and flavor-wise, maybe a click past where we want to be. Maybe we'll go light brown. What dissolves sugar? Water. But remember, we drove all of the water content out of brown butter, and the chocolate doesn't really have any appreciable water content. Yeah, I'm not really noticing that the sugar is melting appreciably here. One of the things that I'm trying to go for here is a crackly top. It's really the kind of melting of the sugar interacting with the eggs, which are kind of forming a minimal layer of meringue on top of the brownies. That's kind of forming and rising as they bake. I hate when the measuring spoons still have the ring. Just like separate them. Why do you want them all attached? So I'm doing 2 teaspoons of vanilla. All right, definitely noticing a texture change now. This is like a very tight cake batter. Dry ingredients, kind of stir them in, just so I don't overwork this mixture. It's a very thick mixture. Releases almost semi-clean from the bowl. Definitely with the addition of the eggs, I noticed a big difference. And I do want to spread this out. It is reading a little tight to me, but we'll see how it bakes up. The proof is certainly in the brownie, as they say. Another assumption I'm making is that let's start this first attempt at 350, which is pretty standard, but knowing that some brownie recipes do occasionally call for baking temperature of as much as 400, which I think is a way of kind of getting like a crispier edge coupled with like a gooier center, but let's see. One thing a brownie should not be is underbaked. I'm not like the neatest baker. That's why I find it honestly baking at home, not the most relaxing. Just anticipating the cleanup. Everybody wants to help. It's the tiniest bit of moist crumb attached. I think we're good there. The top feels pretty nice and set. There are some good things happening here in terms of having a little bit of a crackly top. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. A hot brownie by default is almost always delicious. So I think we need to throw this in the fridge before we can even talk about it. It's only when things set to room temp that you can really see, oh, is this truly crispy, jammy, chewy, all of the things. I want to see from the side, how does that look? There's a little bit of structure here, and it kind of devolves into this layer of sort of indeterminate fudge. I'm kind of looking at how you have a little bit more of this height and structure around the edge. This brownie is too intense. It's too chocolatey and just lacking a certain amount of like structure and or even water. Just give me a little bit of like more height, a little bit more kind of openness. I'm worried about texture and flavor. The two things I think are real deficits here are the decisions we made in terms of the interventions around the butter, the light brown sugar. Did that really make a difference? I don't know. Like, are you reading the brown butter against the backdrop of 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate and a half cup of Dutch processed cocoa powder? Maybe not. V2 inspired to an extent by the simplicity of Ruth Reichel and the Mark Bittman. What happens when you incorporate a higher proportion of melted chocolate versus cocoa? Bittman's got half a cup of AP flour. Ruth Reichel has a 1/4 cup of AP flour. What if we did a 1/4 cup of cocoa and a 1/4 cup of flour? Bittman's got 3 ounces of unsweetened. This bar is 4 ounces. So wouldn't it be nice to just use the 4 ounces of unsweetened? 1 stick butter, but we're not gonna brown it. I'm just melting the chocolate and the butter together. This is decidedly simpler than having to brown the butter in a separate pan. 1 1/4 cup sugar. No brown sugar in this version. Different proportions of the same ingredients will have different outcomes. The number of people who are like, oh, but like, you just like took the same ingredients that so-and-so used and then just like did different quantities. I was like, yeah, wow, thank you for paying attention. All right, this is version 2. Didn't have the crackly top, which I'm not entirely surprised by. I'm honestly surprised that we did get such a pronounced crackly top with V1. It also feels overly dark and overly savory. The texture is maybe a slight improvement versus V1, but it's still reading pretty brooding, pretty dark, and kind of heavy. Would brown butter, even if I had used it, show up against that level of intensity coming from the chocolate flavor? Probably not. My instinct is to frankly add more flour and add an egg to just kind of keep that chocolatiness, but just kind of stretch it out over something a little bit lighter and taller and bring a little bit more kind of cakiness kind of back into it. What would that do? That's what I think is so interesting, right? It's like, it can be a brownie and it can fit the brief, check all the boxes, and still feel wrong. You didn't necessarily create something exceptional. It works, but is it great? Not at all. What I'm thinking is maybe we work this from both sides. We take what we like about V1 and we try to continue to refine it. So pull back some of the chocolate, pull back some of the cocoa, see if maybe just going to all granulated sugar will give us a little bit more of that kind of crispiness around the edge. Brown sugar, right, it is good at making things moist and chewy, but I wonder if in the case of a brownie, really it's the granulated that's doing the heavy lifting in terms of giving you that kind of crispiness. So point being, what if we refine V1? Okay, do another pass at that called 1A. I know, see what I did there? This just helps me see side by side where we're at. I'm gonna go down to 1/3 cup AP. We're gonna go down to 1/3 Dutch cocoa. And let's stay consistent at 1 tea salt. I wanna go to 4 ounce bittersweet, 2 eggs. I'm actually gonna go up in sugar. I'm gonna go to 1 1/4 cup granulated sugar. You wanna be careful when you introduce sugar and eggs together because the sugar will start to cook the egg. It's one of those things like my culinary instructors were always like, you have to stop whisking, it will cook it. But it's like, will it? It'll kind of singe it, and I think it can cause the egg to separate. I'm starting by whisking the eggs and sugar until they're foamy and starting to form ribbons. See if we can get a little melty. A brownie needs to have a crackly top. Liquefying the sugar to an extent is important, but is it important enough to ask people to build the batter on the stovetop? Maybe. Already for some folks, putting a bowl over simmering pot of water is like 10 times harder than opening up a box of mix. So I just want to be mindful of that. Then I'm going to incorporate the brown butter and chocolate mixture. This is where it gets wild because we're also going to go up to 375. Baking at 375, I'm hoping gets us a little bit more of a set and kind of crispy edge while still maintaining a fudgy center. Higher temperature, higher proportion of granulated sugar, better crispiness. We'll see. Neither version 1 nor version 2 is feeling nearly close enough to me right now. I've got 1A in the oven, see how that's looking before I make any next moves. Version 1. This is where I kind of pulled out some stops in terms of dialing up flavors and ingredients.
Very dense, but also a little dry.
Version 2.
Yeah, definitely more of a terrain.
It's definite absence of crackliness.
Texture is better, but the chocolate flavor is not as like nuanced. You did use unsweetened here, so that might be a contributor.
This I'm calling 1A. It's closer to 1. I did a little blanchir of the eggs and sugar.
Okay.
That's the word, you know? I didn't want to say it before.
It kind of helped that almost meringue situation.
I wouldn't mind if there was a little bit more height to these.
Adding another egg might help.
Plus a click more dry ingredient, flour, cocoa powder.
Can I throw in a curveball?
Yeah.
Have you considered chocolate chips?
You can. You can. Part of the reason is like I hate them and I don't want them in a brownie.
Okay.
But I think it can help having that like liquid sugar riding along with the chocolate pieces. It has shown to improve that kind of crackly top.
Oh.
I was looking before we spoke to kind of build a little bit more on V2, but you've made me see some of the benefits of where we came in with like V1. And I think maybe we can continue to refine off of V1A.
I would add chips and maybe like a touch of instant espresso. I'm not browning butter.
I know, I don't.
Sorry.
I do worry that the brown butter presents a Rubicon that many people will not cross. Overall, the reception to 1A was pretty favorable. A lot of questions for tomorrow. Can we get away with doing this in one bowl? Is 375 really the right temp? I also want to try taking out the brown butter. I think we probably have 4 or 5 more rounds tomorrow.
How are you feeling?
I feel okay this morning. The walls are closing in a little bit just in terms of not having as much time as I would like. This is the version I'm working with first up today based on what I learned from version 1A. Key things to note are no longer using brown butter. What if we try to bring the sugar and the eggs to this bowl and like kind of warm them up slightly as we whisk them and see if we can get the sugar to dissolve a little bit that way without making it hot per se? Is that a good idea or is that a bad idea? I don't actually know. Adding an egg, so 3 eggs total. Look at what a difference it made to add that 3rd egg. Like this is so much more fluid of a batter. We upped the AP flour and cocoa powder to help offset that increased liquidity from the egg, but also in the interest of creating a little bit more structure to the brownie. And then the X factor, chocolate chips.
All right.
I was entirely against chocolate chips for a while. I may still be against chocolate chips, let me make that very clear. But if they serve a purpose, who am I to deny, you know, the impact that they could have on this recipe, right? Just because I don't necessarily want them in my brownie doesn't mean they shouldn't be there. I mean, wow, what a difference in terms of how much we're filling this thing. I'm really liking the height. It presents as more of a significant brownie. Pretty nice separation of this like lovely, crackly, slightly meringue-like top with this fudgy lower quadrant. This is the brownie you can eat several bites of. The chocolate chips aren't bumming me out in any way. I think they help reinforce that sensation of fudginess. One thing that I think is really working here is the balance of flavor. We've got a lovely, sweet, fruity, cocoa-y, intensely chocolatey balance. It like really invites another bite when you taste it.
Here's my taste. It is a little bit more chewy, which I appreciate. The thing that I'm missing is like a little bit more salt. And I'd be curious, like, what does this version taste like with the brown butter? Honestly, you're close.
90 to 95% of the development work, the heavy lifting, is behind us. The two bigger criteria that we want to gauge are bringing brown butter back, and then also a version with high heat, going up to 400. We're running a little bit out of time here, so Danielle's gonna cook through the brown butter version, and I'll do the bake at 400. High heat, I'm wondering if it's gonna channel even more heat through the metal pan and get us even more of a crispy edge, contrasted with more of a rich and fudgy interior. Brown butter, the question is it gonna make a really big impact on flavor? And could our structure be compromised in any way by driving off all of the water content? We're gonna treat our previous batch that we tasted as our control group. Will either of these things prove to be decisive and worth making an argument for? I don't know, but that's why we're gonna do it.
Couldn't have come at a better time. I'm in need of a little bit of a sugar.
Time of day for sure. Baking at 400 as opposed to 375. The chocolate chips are a real revelation, I gotta say.
The texture is beautiful. You know what? This one looks the prettiest, but it's actually a little dry. I think it's the high heat pulled a little too much moisture.
So 375 just feels like a much safer temperature.
The second offshoot of the day, nice.
The difference here is bringing back the brown butter, but not making any other changes.
It's definitely yielded a different texture. It's drier, veering on crumbly.
Where we started yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's both gratifying, but also slightly maddening. The same exact amount of butter browned totally compromised the structure of this brownie. I just want to refresh my recollection of the control. This gives me just a bit more boxed brownie, but on steroids, in a good way.
The texture is so good. It's like, if you can see your teeth marks, I must say the sugar level is still a little high for me.
For you. Interesting. I feel like the sugar is part of what's giving us
nice
this.
Top. It is more balanced than yesterday's, but I think it can still go down to a cup. I mean, would you consider some flaky salt on top? Or no, we're like...
I feel like it takes you too far out of the box brownie paradigm.
Okay, that's fair.
It's like...
You gave me chips, I'm happy with the chips.
I gave you your chips.
Yes, okay.
Get out of here. I'm really happy with the control, but I do think there's one more round of testing that we could do just to control for this question of sweetness. And one test can be switching to bittersweet chocolate, but keeping the sugar the same. And one could be keeping the bar chocolate as is, but just dropping the sugar by 1/4 cup. We are circling my platonic ideal of a brownie, but we are close. You know, we're on approach, but we gotta do like one more spin around in the air before we can bring that sucker down. Broad strokes, I think this is a great brownie, one that I think could appeal to virtually anybody. Big day. Oh my goodness. My perfect brownie, the platonic ideal, is somewhere in one of these pans. I was definitely apprehensive at the beginning of this process about whether we could really crack this one, especially in just 2 days. This is a moment of truth. There have been many along the way. Definitely pretty cocoa forward. There's a richness here. You know, there's a richness and intensity of the cocoa flavor that is very nice. Let's check out the bittersweet. I think the flavor balance is really nice in this bittersweet. I'm missing sugar here. I also wonder, with less sugar present, still have a little bit of crackle, but it's just not as pronounced. Whereas that bittersweet version, you really get the sensation of glossiness, that crackly surface.
How are you feeling?
I feel good. Listen, like I said, it's never actually over, but at a certain point, somebody just has to yell cut, right? I don't want to be the only person to decide. Hana went home, thank God, so we don't have to argue about the sugar anymore. Everyone can grab a bite. Christie, I need you in there. What did everyone think?
That's amazing.
It's good? This guy right here, calling version 6 our winner. It's mostly written out in our standard recipe language. I just need to go in and make a few tweaks and then see what happens on the cross test. It's so fun to look back at the evolution. I mean, look at where we started. The density, the matte finish, lack of any kind of real structure. to see the progression, you know, like kind of all the way through here to end up a little taller on the plate, having that lovely crackly surface, lovely structure, ample chew, fudginess. Honestly, it's so gratifying. It's a different perspective. It's a different point of view on the brownie. And it's one that I hope people will really be into. Double boiler, melt the butter and the chocolate, whisk in sugar, whisk in the eggs one by one, vanilla, dry ingredients, flour, our cocoa powder, our salt, and then chocolate chips. And then boom, right into the oven, about half an hour. I don't think it's that much harder than driving to the store, coming back and making something from a mix. We kept the process simple, but we made it really, really work hard. This is my platonic ideal of a brownie. It's a heck of a journey. I'm really happy with how it came out.